BIP of Bizarre Interest Productions. Okay, I'm probably gonna have to explain myself, won't I, with this one? Okay, so a few weeks ago, I saw a post with Luffy and Yamato fighting Kaido on Instagram that had the caption, how Luffy would pull up to the White House after I give him a chicken, large tea, and a small info dump about Trump, and the top comments were all claiming Luffy wouldn't get along with Trump at all, but also lots of debates on if Luffy would even defend any governmental figure or group. He'd probably force one party to make good on their promises or punch them if they're liars, but semantics. There were also a few other questions like, genuine question, who would win, the full force of the US/military or the Straw Hats? Or Trump ate the terror fruit. But there were two comments that stood out to me. Zoro v Vance and Sanji v Musk. Can't wait for Chopper versus RFK. So I figured while people are naturally agreed upon, I asked my friends what they thought about me doing a video like this. Naturally, because I'm freaking insane, no one either told me that this is a bad idea at all, or responded, and I took that as a great idea. I'm sure this won't backfire on me anyway in the comment section. Well, I decided to do a few hours of research, and it got me thinking, which member of the Trump administration would each member of the Straw Hat Pirates fight if the former was in the One Piece world as their own pirate crew funded by the world government? Yeah, while I will be talking about people that could be criticized for their actions regarding their country in a negative light, in no way am I advocating for the end of their real lives through non-natural means. Second, I am mostly taking into consideration which Straw Hats' motivations would clash with their respective rivals' roles as leaders in their respective fields they're in charge of. But I do have to take into consideration the characterizations and lore of the character. For example, I can't put Sanji against Linda McMahon because he's not going to fight 100% against a woman. Yeah, I have 11 matchups to consider and quite a few surprises for these matchups. Also, disclaimer, I am a casual One Piece fan. If I went on a date with someone who knew One Piece and they asked me to name the first person Luffy befriended in Chapter 1 and the islands he went to in order from first to current, I will be able to say Kobe and the island he met Alvida on, but I wouldn't be able to remember the name. I'm sorry, and if I get anything wrong, please let me know in the comments. But before we begin in the comment section, tell me what you think the matchups are going to be, or what you think some of the double fruits for some of the people I don't mention should be. Anyway, let's get started. First up, Monkey D. Luffy versus Donald J. Trump. This one should be obvious. Both of them are the leaders of their respective organizations, both related to rather infamous fathers. Both have one hell of a diet. Both weren't taken seriously by the world, only to learn the hard way that they are someone people should have taken very seriously. And yes, you could argue Trump has done things that would make Luffy want to punch him. Now, for this video, I was actually considering giving each member of the Trump administration, I'm talking about a devil fruit. Someone had joked that Trump should get the tariff fruit. I was originally going to say give him a power that involves gold, but it'd be a cool idea to give him a power set where he can control and manipulate any object or solid product he places a tariff on, but it's limited to the price and environment, so food and objects he doesn't have a tariff on can't be affected. But tell me in the comment section, if Donald Trump had a devil fruit, what would you want it to be or what would make the most sense? Next up, First Mate Zoro versus Vice President JD Vance. Now, I said I wasn't going to go for just simple matchups, but this one is pretty obvious. They are officially the second in command, despite the jokes one of them got replaced or sharing a role, and both are currently staunch defenders of their choices, regardless of what they used to be in the past. But I do have a particular reason why Zoro versus JD Vance would be a great match. Last year and this year, the KKK and neo-Nazis ended up getting motivated to come to Ohio after Vance spread a bunch of debunked lies about Haitian originating Ohio citizens based on eating cats in Springfield. What had actually happened was that a woman in Canton, way miles away, was arrested for killing a cat, and a Trump supporter on Facebook named Anna Kilgore blamed her Haitian neighbor for her cat disappearing, claiming that they killed and ate her cat, only to find her cat lurking in her basement. Once she apologized, eventually the damage was already done, and that report was the proof for Trump's in Springfield. They're eating the dogs, they're eating the cats, they're eating people's pets. That's what's happening in our country comments. Meanwhile, Zoro has had one of the most weirdest relationships with animals. He shared a toast with them, fought a giraffe man and a rhino, had a duck befriended him, been dropped from the sky by an avian. It's interesting to say the least. I have always said that a foundation based on hate will always crumble, and the KKK was just as much about as dangerous to white people as they were to people of color. A white woman was abducted by the Grand Dragon of the Indian clan to be tortured and essayed, and fought her death pain to describe his actions to authorities, and the chapter of that clan will try to demonize her only for him to get convicted. And then he got convicted again of trying to force a 16-year-old into his vehicle. They'd also try to demonize Catholics and Jews even if they were white, attempted to recruit young girls and boys into the junior division, have female and male grifters trying to use the clan for financial reasons, women threatening other women to join, getting teachers fired for having a different religion, refuse to go to businesses the Catholic owners, or block non-Protestants from renting and socially isolated, and other people who even had the same skin tone as them. And JD Vance cited those types of people that were inspired by the KKK to come to the state to terrorize his people. So, what's the Zoro connection? Well, most people don't know this, but Ohio actually had their own anti-KKK organization. Way back in the 1920s, the Knights of the Flaming Circle were a group allowing anyone not a Protestant or a member of the KKK, filled with immigrant groups, labor leaders, and politicians to fight against them. There were 2 incidents where the Flaming Circle cornered Klan members at a hotel and attacked them with bricks, bottles, and clubs in a fight with over 2,000 to 3,000 people involved. No deaths, at least. Then the next year, the KKK had their second parade blocked by the Knights of the Flaming Circle, causing a counter march, resulting in an 18-hour sprint of full-blown rioting after the mayor's home got bombed for refusing to revoke the parade permit for the KKK happening in the first place. And when Zoro and the crew went to Wano, which was being ran over by a tyrannical ruler willing to target members of their own people for spite and revenge, despite many of his new targets being innocent children like he was, Zoro immediately tries to kill him, Orochi, for poisoning a village with defective smiles and starving children. While Vance and Trump's statements resulted in innocent children and families having to worry about bomb threats to their schools, government buildings, and city officials' homes since the last week that happened, forcing evacuations. And unlike some people, Zoro is not afraid to cut down people who tried to frame him, and we also found out he was descended from Wano. So, in that sense, one went to liberate his people from tyranny, the other exposed them to said tyranny. As for Vance's devil fruit, I came up with an idea. We'll call it the perception fruit. Any rumors or half-truths he says empowers his speed or power based on how many people believe him, but the less people believe him, the weaker he gets. Told you there was more to them than just being in second in command. Alright, next off. Third is Nami, both the navigator and the treasurer versus director of management and budget, Russell Vought. This one should be obvious. Nami's money obsessed for reasons that are pretty obvious. She and her adoptive sister and mother lived in poverty, then had to find a way to earn so much to get her adoptive mother's killer off their island's back, only to end up with Arlong never allowing her to pay in the first place. But she has a deep-seated respect for some female marines since Bellamere took care of her and thinks that she could trust Ashiki with the Kenzo Puck hazard. Plus, she's willing to give up treasure for her friends. Meanwhile, Vaught's been accused of planning to purge career civil servants to make it easier to fire them, has claimed to want career civil servants in trauma and when they wake up in the morning. We want them to not want to go to work because they're increasingly viewed as the villains, calling for an army of investigators to prosecute current and former governmental officials who sought to hold Trump accountable for his actions. But here's also the fact that both are willing to get money through any means, but while Nami has morals about who she's willing to take from, Vought supported dark money contributions for Project 2025, which he played a role in creating, and considering Arlong had corrupt Marines paid off to ignore his crimes, it feels like Vought would be one of those corrupt Marines to confiscate the money Nami stole and he's in charge of. Also, Vought just sounds like a supervillain name, right? The boys exist, I know, but we can all agree that's just a very weird coincidence. Comments, tell me what Vaught's devil fruit would be if you could think of one. Fourth is Sniper Usopp versus Kristi Noem, the United States Secretary of Homeland Security. This one is kind of obvious. Usopp's a sharpshooter and sniper for the pirates, a skeptic who's not as strong but goes out of his way to protect those he cares about, and comes up with ways to fight some of the trickier devil fruit opponents. Meanwhile, Kristi's in charge of ensuring the United States from various threats, including counterterrorism, cybersecurity, and disaster response. What's the connection? Well, he can shoot a pop green projectile that transforms into a big wolf, and Noam shot her dog. Yikes, that was so bad. Allegedly, she got removed as a contender to be Trump's running mate. She also got banned from all 9 of South Dakota's Native American tribes for accusing them of working with the cartels on their land reservation without evidence. Meanwhile, even if Usopp was disappointed, he always respected Elbaf's giants and cultures, even going out of his way to help out entire countries of people like he freed all the victims from Sugar's devil fruit. So I can imagine her devil fruit would be a bullet fruit or something that would result in these two having a pretty fun rifle or long-range battle. So, fifth is going to be Sanji versus Elon, right? Nope. Look, I get the connection. Sanji seen as Luffy's other right-hand man and basically third in command, like Elon is kind of officially, well, was. Both hate their father, have an interesting relationship with their siblings, both have ties to technology with Sanji's raid suit and Must Tesla, and are pretty horny, but that's really about it. Elon's not even a family member who can cook or has that many ties to food and catering. That's his brother Kimball Musk who does. Elon needs a robot to cook, and even in terms of women, I'd argue Sanji's way better in that regard to Elon. Some of the mermaids went to him, Violet loved him, Cosette was grateful. Hell, his fiance was going to murder him, but he found her so beautiful and respected her more than even her mother that he managed to save them both. Meanwhile, Elon's got 4 baby mamas. Women on Twitter are perfectly okay with cheating on their husbands for him, and I found better opponents for both of them, which we will talk about later. So, who's fifth? Well, diplomat or negotiator, Vivi versus Secretary of Agriculture, Book Rawlings. Yeah, I count Vivi as a member. I mean, yeah, she ref, but that's only really because she's the Princess of Alabasta, for now. She's basically the closest thing to a diplomat and a negotiator for the crew. Plus, from what I've heard, she's going to find a way to rejoin them. But why against a Secretary of Agriculture who deals with food and natural resources? Wouldn't that fit Sanji better? Well, remember, in Alabasta, at least for the arc, Vivi was trying to stop Crocodile's use of the dance powder since it will cause long periods of drought and blame the king for stealing the country's resources, causing a civil war affecting her people, while Rawlings is willing to support strategic deportations to not compromise their country's food supply, even though her people's farmers argue automation can't replace the immigrant workers, especially since it's not actually helping the farmers, especially those on Medicaid, and we all know that Vivi is not the type of person to let her people or anyone suffer politically when something could be done. Can't think of a devil fruit for Rawlings, so comment section, make one up. Now, let's get Sanji as the cook versus Lee Zedlin, the administrator of the Environmental Protection Agency. Now, Sanji doesn't hit women, so we couldn't use him for agriculture, but the EPA is also responsible for the sustainable management of food. This one makes a bit more sense when there are places for the EPA to dismantle core clean air and water protections to give polluters a field pass by rolling back 12 out of the 31 environmental proposals, which can range from asthma attacks to air and water pollution that affect different food resources and productions. And Sanji would definitely try to stop someone from harming the environment, helping him make his meals, even using blades against cooking opponents if he has to. Let's give Zeldin the disaster fruit where he can transform, shape, and use natural disasters and environmental hazards. Then there's Chopper, the ship doctor, versus Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who's somehow the Secretary of Health and Human Service. I feel like I don't even have to explain this one. Hell, hot take, I think Chopper could take him in base form. Give RFK a worm fruit and wear sets. After that, Nico Robin versus Linda McMahon, and we've got an archaeologist who has been targeted for her intelligence and ability to read the poneglyphs that tell the truth of the world, versus a former professional wrestler promoter, now somehow the head of the Department of Education. Something meant for helping young boys and girls, and yet somehow ended up in a scandal involving her and her husband being accused of supporting Mel Phillips in recruits of sexual exploitation of minors. Okay, it's crazy how only 2 people I have talked about on this list has not had any crazy scandals or controversies, but what the hell? I mean, plus, both of them technically are associated with wrestling in some ways, especially given Robin's skill is in submission, diving neck snaps, and backbreakers with her devil fruit, so this one felt appropriate. Then there's Franky as a shipwright versus Sean Duffy, the Secretary of Transportation, which I feel is pretty simple. Franky was trained by Tom to build ships, and with the Going Mary's passing, built 1,000 Sunny with help from the Galley Law, Foreman, and Iceberg. Meanwhile, Sean Duffy, a few outside outrageous comments and allegedly harassing a lesbian for sex on reality television. Sounds about alright, by this administration standards. But he doesn't really have any experience running for an organization as large as the U.S. Department of Transportation, though he's got plans to help out truckers and wants something to be done about NYC subway crime, so it's a fight of experience versus new recruits. Then is my favorite one. Our musical skeleton Brook's ideal opponent would be Marco Rubio, now to the U.S. Department of State. Why? Well, it took me a while to find out this information because I was really struggling to find an appropriate matchup for Brook, but they cut the Bureau of Education and Cultural Affairs, which is responsible for using music as a tool for diplomacy, and the Global Music Diplomacy Initiative promotes peace and democracy through music, so I don't think Brook would be okay with the government limiting something that he values and could connect through others with. And finally, Jimbei versus Elon Musk. I feel like this is the one I'm going to have to explain, but it's pretty simple. Elon isn't exactly a part of the Trump administration. Okay, technically he is, but in terms of the second Trump cabinet, he's not a sworn member to any established governmental position. Doge is not a federal executive department because those require congressional approval, and he has left that position, but those two break up and make up as often as insecure teenagers dating for the first time do. Heck, these two are essentially the advisors to their respective groups. Elon basically acts as a top advisor to Trump to the point people were arguing if he was involved. And he was basically trying to reduce and provide debatable support in terms of what they believe should get cut in each department. Meanwhile, with Jimbei, Oda basically treats him as the team dad who helps out with his strength and guidance, particularly to the Captain Luffy. And once he officially joined, Jimbei took over for the steering that Nami, Usopp, Chopper, Franky, and Sanji would have done so well as a helmsman, that he could guide the ship through a giant wave Big Mom created, which was alive, mind you. Also, you have a battle between organic and natural well-trained abilities versus tech skills, and the fact he may be technically reaching off other people for his own genius, but semantics. So, that's my list on which members of the Trump administration would each Straw Hat Pirate fight. Do you agree? Do you disagree on anything I should have to consider or something I should have probably brought up or mentioned? Should I include all the links for my information, or will I just have angry people upset that they started out with this video being something for fun, and then I ended up becoming miserable because all the research I had to do was surprisingly disturbing? Sometimes you can have a good idea, and it just depends on how if it works out or not. But I'm working on this the whole day, and my mental health isn't really in the best mood right now, so let's just get this over with. I'm going to start recording. Thanks for watching, and BIP of Bizarre Interest Productions signing off. I'll try for the better for the next one.